Today we learn how to use the Excel offset function to calculate rolling financial returns. If you already work in the financial industry, learning this function will make you the star of the office because you will be able to automate a lot of the calculations that need to get done on a monthly basis. If you are looking to get a job in the financial sector, learn this function and put it on your CV. That will show your future employer that you understand what your job is going to involve. And also is going to save you lots of time and make your life much easier when you actually start working. So now intro, and then we jump into the tutorial straight away. So what we're doing today is building a dynamic fact sheet. A fact sheet is a document that usually has some performance numbers like the 1 year and 3 year performance and a chart representing financial data. So here I have monthly returns on my investment portfolio from July 2017 up until June 2020, which is exactly 36 months. What I want to do is to calculate the 1 year and 3 year performance of this portfolio and have a nice graph for the 1 year performance, for example. The objective is to set up everything in this spreadsheet in such a way that we never have to touch the formulas again. We want to eliminate the manual update of formulas. How do we do that? We do that using the name manager at the top that you can find in the formulas tab, and by using the offset function together with it. So let's see how it's done. When you click on the name manager, this window opens, right? So we use the name manager to give a name to a group of cells, to give a name to a specific range in the workbook. After we click on it, we get this window. At the top, we can type the name that we want to give to the specific range. In this case, I want to create a dynamic range that refers to the last 12 months return. So I'm going to call it 1 year return. Remember that you cannot use numbers as first characters, and also you cannot separate the words by tab. You need to use the underscore. Then in the middle you have the comments. You can add comments if you want, if it helps you remember what the named range is referring to, where you use it, etc. And there at the bottom you actually have to insert, you actually have to tell Excel to which cells you want to refer, which cells you want to include into this named range. Now, crucial point. Instead of simply selecting a range of cells, I will use the offset function. If I don't use offset, my range will be static, which means that it will not automatically update, and we do not want that in our lives, right? That's why we need to learn what the offset function does. We use offset when we want to select a range. And by the way, guys, a range is nothing else than a particular group of cells. But in this case, the position of the cells is not static, is not fixed, because it can change over time. For example, when we add new information to a column of existing financial data. Offset takes 5 arguments. The first 3 tell me where in the spreadsheet my target range is going to be, and the last 2 arguments tell me how big this range looks like, or in other words, the dimensions, where height is the number of rows and width is the number of columns. For example, if you put 1, 1 as the last 2 arguments, it means that you are targeting somewhere in the spreadsheet a range that is equivalent to 1 cell only. So let's look at the first 3 arguments in more detail. The first one is the origin, or the starting point. We do need this one because it doesn't matter where your range is located, we need to have somewhere to start from in order to get there. Then with the next 2 arguments, we tell Excel where our target range is in relation to the starting point. For example, 3 rows down and 2 columns to the left. Now let's look at this with an easy example. As you can see in this other empty spreadsheet, I have put in cell D1 my offset formula. And if you note, before I wrote anything, I just put an apostrophe. The apostrophe is the way that you tell Excel that everything that comes afterwards is just text. So it will treat everything as text and it will not treat it as a formula. So we can actually see the syntax and what I have placed where. So A1 is my origin, my starting point. Then afterwards I have 3 and 2. These two, remembers, these two arguments, they tell me how to navigate my spreadsheet to my desired range. First, how many rows, and then how many columns you want to travel from the origin, from the starting point. By convention, plus 3 means 3 rows down, and plus 2 means 2 columns to the right. Equally, if we had negative numbers, minus 3 would mean 3 rows up, and minus 2 would mean 2 columns to the left. So according to the formula here, we're traveling 3 rows down and then 2 columns to the right until we get to the desired range. The dimensions of my desired range are 1, 1, which means that I'm only targeting one cell. In this case, it will be C4. Now let's see if it works. I'm going to write something in cell C4, and then I'm going to take away the apostrophe from cell D1. If everything goes to plan, I should have in D1 the exact reference of C4. Indeed, it works. Offset is exactly targeting that particular range we're interested in. How we get there with the navigation, the first 3 arguments. First one, starting point. Then how many rows down or up, depending on whether you put a positive or a negative number, and how many columns to the right or to the left. So going back to my original spreadsheet, what I'm targeting here with the offset function is the last 12 data points in column B, because those refer to the last 12 months return that I will use in the calculation of the last 1 year return. And the powerful thing about the offset function when used in the name manager this way is that it allows us to define a dynamic range. So when we add new data in column B, the dynamic range will refresh and will incorporate new data, but it will also roll down in such a way that always the last 12 months are taken, no more and no less. So let's look now at the syntax of the formula. My origin will be the cell B1, the beginning of my range, and then if I want to know how many rows I have to travel down, well, it depends on how many data I have. So instead of putting a number, instead of hard coding a number, I will use the count function. The count function just counts how many cells have numbers. In terms of columns where I don't want to move from the column in which I am now, which is column B, so that will put 0. And then the last 2 arguments, as we just saw, are to define the dimension of my specified range. I want to take the last 12 rows because those are the last 12 data points that I need. So I will put minus 12. And how many columns wide is my range? Well, it's just 1 column wide because it's just in column B. Click OK. And now the dynamic range is saved. To make sure that you actually selected what you were originally targeting, click on it and Excel will show you in a box what the dynamic range is referring to, what the name refers to. And as you can see, these are my last 12 data points. So now we can actually calculate the 1 year performance, and I'm going to use the FV schedule formula for that. This is very useful and super common in financial services. With this formula that takes 2 arguments, the initial investment and the returns, we can find out what is going to be the value of my investment after I apply a series of returns. My initial investment in this case, let's assume, is just $1, £1, whatever. And my schedule of returns is going to be exactly the last 12 months return. Once you start typing the name of the range as ONE, O-N-E, it will appear as a suggestion from Excel, so you can either click your tab button or you can double click on it. It will work. Close brackets and then subtract 1, because we're not interested in the initial pound that we invested. We only want to know how much are the returns capitalized, how much is the compounded return. So it's like I'm investing £1, I make it grow for 12 months, but then I'm subtracting it because I only want to know how much the returns added, if that makes sense. And then press enter. That will give you minus 0.5. Let's now check if it actually works. What we're doing now, we will add new data in column B. We will add new financial returns, and we will see if my 1 year performance updates automatically. So now it's minus 50 basis points. I also have the data here for the return at the end of July. July was another negative month for my portfolio, and the return was actually minus 90 basis points. So now let's see what happens in cell E2 when we press enter. You see it changed automatically from minus 50 basis points to minus 3.8%. Let's add now August. August was minus 60 basis points return. And there you see, once we press enter, once we update, the formula automatically updates as well. How is that possible? Well, because that's what we've done. So let's just check that everything is fine and is working. If we open the formulas tab and then we click on name manager, if we click on the 1 year return, we will see that now it has shifted down our box and is selecting always the last 12 data points in column B. So we're sure that that will work. In the next video I'm going to publish, I will show you with this same example how to build, apart from the formula for the 1 year return, also a graph that will automatically update every time that you're putting new data. So make sure you check that out. For now, I thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you soon.